reactions that your body can have, like when you release trauma. And one of the ways he said was that you start to feel sensation in places that felt numb. And it's so interesting that you said that, because through the years that I've been like doing this kind of work, I have felt so much sensation. I mean, I'm amazed that I was so numb before. Like you said, you don't know it until you start having sensations in these areas. And now it's like my body is so alive. Like I feel sensations so much. But it's interesting because I think a lot of people don't feel that sensation and don't know that
they're not feeling it.
Right. They don't know that they're numb, and they don't know how much aliveness awaits them if they can, release and activate these particular areas.
That's
it feels so good.
Yeah, it's so, I find it a lot of fun. And just like the sense of self-discovery and wonder, like it makes me think of, okay, so this is how I think about Eros energy and like what it is and like what its place is in our lives. To me, Eros is that energy of enchantment that is cast on just your same old familiar everyday life. So just like one example, I had this night with a guy, and then like the next morning, I just did the same old walk to work that I had done plenty of times already, that was already so familiar, but just this sense of magic and wonder and euphoria I was filled with, like the whole walk just seemed so much more magical, even though nothing changed. It was the same old fucking walk that I had done so many times before. But just that extra like light of Eros, that energy of Eros just transformed it into a magical experience. And like that's what I feel like when you're actually getting connected to your body, like actually letting traumas work themselves out of your tissues, like it allows us to access that same kind of enchantment. Like, wow, this is the same old body, this is the same old life. However, with this extra like vitality and connection flowing through me, it's like, wow, I like am so much more able to connect with Eros, with enchantment. And nothing's different. Like the same. It's the same body. It's the same place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I love that word, enchantment. I love it so much. And I like to call it, like this experience you just described, I like to call it getting high off your own supply. I mean, because I mean, it's one thing to like use these things to get high or get high off somebody else that, they light you up or whatever. But when you can get high off your own energy, I mean, that is what we're really here to do, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then, I mean, you are it. You know how they say you are the one you're looking for? Like, we think everything is on the outside, but it's us. It's really us. And I don't know if you've heard this before, where they say, like, when you fall in love or whatever, it's really not that, it's really not all about this other person. It's about how you feel inside in their presence, or what they're able to unlock in you, or what they're able to activate in you. But at the end of the day, you're feeling you. So what you're really in love with is the experience of yourself that this person was able to activate, or, maybe they create a safe container for this activation, but it's really you. We think it's all about the other person, but it's really us, our own energy, our free flowing love and life force, that we're just letting it just bathe us and everything else, in it. That is really what we're doing here. So, yeah, I love this enchantment and just, tuning into our own energy and kind of like related to this, I had a somatic session this week, and that was partly the theme. Like, it was a somatic session for heightened pleasure. And a big part of the session was tuning in and feeling like looking for the pleasure, looking for that felt sense of safety. And I mean, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And I mean, to think that we can cultivate that to the point where we don't have to buy things or, use other people to give us that once we're able to cultivate that within ourselves, that becomes a go-to place. It's really like a homecoming.
Yeah. I'm curious then, like okay, there's this one phrase that I did not realize I was interpreting a different way my whole life than how maybe some people meant it when they chose it or like when they said it. But like, so I've heard this phrase like someone's like you need to choose to be happy, which is like, yes, it's true that like you can block happiness all day, every day by, yeah, clinging to like judgments, clinging to, just beliefs that make you unhappy. That's a separate thing. I'm not talking about that. So, but like when this person was saying people choose to be happy, as in like, so for example, in our choice of partnership, like you can choose to be with the person that you are genuinely like lit up with, or you can choose to partner with a person that maybe like looks better on paper or like maybe more satisfies your ego, like they're more, I don't know, beautiful, successful, accomplished, like whatever kind of background like might to the ego make them look like a better partner or like whatever, like you can choose them instead, and like that's more what they're talking about when like you choose to be happy. So there's this like quadrilateral plane or whatever, like of all these different like swirling factors where it's like, okay, yes, there's always that like inner part that needs to be 100, and then also there's the external part of like you also are participating in how you are constructing your external reality, like your external home, your external community, your external family. Like after, yeah, like doing that inner work of like, but do I even trust myself? Do I even like, yeah, feel myself? Do I even listen to myself? Yeah. And like they're so related. So I guess, wait, do I even have a question? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if you had a question, but it's interesting that you saying all that, because when I think about that, I have heard people say that too, like choose to be happy. It's a choice. Um, but I guess that phrase never really resonated with me because, like, we have all these emotions. So even, this idea that we need to chase happiness at all times, like happiness is the goal, happiness is the gold standard. That's not something that resonates with me, because there's a reason why we have all these emotions. And depending on what's happening, different emotions are appropriate, so that doesn't resonate with me. But what does kind of resonate, which might be related to that, is this basically accepting what is. So like, even if, you know, you're in a less than fulfilling relationship, or maybe the relationship is going through a rough patch, I think if you first get to a place where you accept what is happening, you know, um, instead of just like resisting it, I think that you have some sort of peace with that, with just accepting that, okay, this is what it is right now. Because everything is not always going to be rainbows and unicorns. Like, even if you're with your soulmate, there's going to be ups and downs in the relationship. And so I think when you first accept it, there's a certain peace that comes with that. And then, then you can see what's next. Like, do we need to like repair? Do we need to, like, what are we doing here? Because it's interesting,
Mhm.
because like this whole thing about attachment styles, I've really been reading a lot about the dynamic between anxious and avoidant. And so maybe because I was in a situation like that for a long time, not knowing that's what it was, but the book that I read, Attached, that's the name of the book, they were saying like that dynamic usually is not fulfilling, especially for the anxious person, because they're the ones that's going to have to make most of the concessions to stay in that relationship. But they did say it can work, like it can eventually become like fulfilling or just, something that you can stay in for the long haul if, number one, if one or both parties shift and become more secure. So that's the ideal. But the other option they said is if the anxious person just accepts that this is what it is and stops, trying to make it be something else and just know that this person, they're not going to give me the intimacy that I want. And so the needs that the anxious person needs, I guess, that are more intimate, they get that somewhere else. Not cheating. And it's funny because I actually know somebody that's in this dynamic in a marriage, a long-term marriage, and I can see it playing out. And I can see that she's at that place where we haven't discussed it, but I can just observe it now that I understand the dynamic. She just accepted the fact that this is how her husband is. He's the avoidant one. And she has this like huge social life. She has all these friends. She has, so she gets her, I guess, certain needs met outside the marriage. And then, the marriage is what it is, So, so I guess maybe that's an example of her choosing to be happy as opposed to trying to get him to be more intimate with her. And, she just, I guess, at a certain point was like, well, it's not going to change. This is what it is. And if I'm going to stay in this marriage, I got to get these other needs met through other places. And I see her doing that. I see her doing that, So like she goes out more than I do. Like she's always going out to lunch, museum, like she keeps herself occupied. And it's like her and her husband are just like, cohabitating. But that's not something that, it's so funny that you brought this up because I've been thinking about romance and relationships and my heart. And I would say that's the one area that my heart has definitely exerted itself. And I didn't always listen to it. Like I thought that I could pick people based on, lists that I had written out. You know how they say, oh, write down everything you want and all this stuff. And I thought I could use my head to pick the right person and, the person that looks good on paper. It took me a very long time to realize that that's not going to work for me because what ends up happening, what has happened time and time again is that if I just went along and picked somebody based on what my mind said, my heart was like, oh, I'm not in this. Like, this is not, like, my heart said no. And I still said, you know what, I'm going to go on and see this person or whatever. And my heart is just like, all right, well, I'm not going to be in it. I'm going to sit this out and let's see how this goes when, with the relationship with no heart. Because that's basically what would happen. Like my heart wasn't in it. And along with my heart comes my body. Like my body doesn't really get in it if my heart is not in it. And so I find myself kind of like going through the motions, kind of like more mechanical. And I can't force it. Like, I don't know if other people are able to do it, but I cannot say to myself, all right, I'm going to be warm and loving and whatever to this person. I can't force my body. It literally will not do it. It won't. So it's so interesting that my heart, so I just said, you know what? My heart has to pick, like seriously, because nothing else will do. And I don't exactly know what my heart's criteria is, but I don't, you know. I mean, I kind of, but it's not like it's a list. It's not anything like that. But the point is, my heart knows it when it sees it, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, you heard me the entire time.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so then this is a nuance I want to bring up that I think really changes the color of how these different kind of like platitudes, cliches, advices can be like received and followed through on. I think that there is like such a deep wound of like abuse in how women are raised and how women have been treated, like, you know, people born and conditioned and raised to be women, um, where, like, you know, we're taught like we're only good for XYZ, and any role or quality outside of that is not like desirable. It's not like something that people praise and love you for. And there's just been such a deep conditioning around our worth is in what we can do for other people, rather than having that sense of autonomy and sovereignty and choice over our own fucking bodies and our own energy and our own expression. So like with like so for example, that thing of like you choose happiness, I think that fucked me up for a long time because from the cradle, it feels like um, everything about me just wasn't honored. It was not affirmed. It was not encouraged. It was not celebrated. It was just a constant influx of like, I have to be this, this, and this if I'm going to succeed and survive. And just no attention paid to like my innate gifts, my innate boundaries. So when I would hear you like people, you can choose to be happy, like what I took that into, it's like stay in this fucking life and circumstance of being abused, being exploited, being extracted from, and just you choose to be happy in it. That's how you become happy. And like, I think what so many people maybe take for granted because maybe they actually were not abused and had beautiful, loving families and upbringings, like they don't realize like, oh, that just means you choose like where your happiness is, you follow that. Like what you say, where your tears fall, that's where your gold is. Like, oh, that means follow your happiness. That means pay attention to what actually makes you happy and let yourself have that. Let yourself choose that. Because, yeah, I feel like there are just so many of us who grew up in homes and also just, you know, living in the miasma of a patriarchal culture. Like, it doesn't occur to us that there are so many of these things that are meant to be followed on a foundation of like, I am not in an abusive environment. My boundaries are honored and they're and respected. My innate inherent self-worth is recognized. Like I think a lot of these platitudes fall short
Mm-hmm.
because like people don't realize like, oh shit, that doesn't work if you're like actually in an abusive like situation though. Like, oh, this definitely doesn't mean like make the most and be grateful when you are actually being abused and
Right.
extracted from and exploited. And yeah, so that is what I've been like just within myself, like realizing like with the money thing, it's like, oh, no matter where it's coming from and how I'm receiving money, I always get to set a boundary. Like, I am not going to be used, I'm not going to be extracted from. It doesn't fucking matter. My boundaries are always honored, and it doesn't matter, like, whether it's for money or what. You know what do you get, are you following me?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So, oh,
boundaries is the foundation because that's the only thing that will make anything, you know, something that you can sustain.
mm-hmm.
So
So
that's a
then
given. Yeah.
another thing then that I'm like, that makes me kind of curious and like low key nosy then about other people's lives. Because then, since everyone is so unique and different, like, and you know how you and I were talking earlier, like, there's no formula for a healthy relationship. Everyone's healthy relationship is going to look unique. So then, just like that same dynamic of like someone who has a partner like with an avoidant attachment style and they can choose to accept it, or like maybe both move towards being more secure. And so, like, for that kind of choice, it's like if you make that choice as a victim, of course, that relationship is going to like keep draining from you. But like, if you make that choice as like, I am a sovereign, autonomous being, and I absolutely have the choice to leave this relationship. However, I am going to choose to accept it. You know, it's like a completely different thing. And no one on the outside can see that. It's like that's a completely inner dynamic that's going to change whether the exact same details are an abusive relationship or a fulfilled relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes. Like as long as you are making a choice and you're making a conscious choice to stay and work with, you know, the situation, then I think you're coming from a place of power.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows what we all signed up for in our soul contract. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
this is what you know, maybe this kind of dynamic is what you signed up for. And to
Yeah.
navigate that and to, you know, get whatever lessons and teachings and, you know, healing that you were meant to have in that sort of a situation. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, I think that it definitely, there's no right or wrong way for these things to look. But I think once you are conscious of what you're in and you make a choice to be in it, then I mean, that's more than half the battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, one
Yeah,
of my
because I feel like every relationship, like nothing is a waste really, because everything is either it's a lesson or it's, you know, preparing you for something else. And it's like it's only in, like, some of us, we need to learn the hard way. You know, like we need to go through certain things to really like learn this thing on a visceral level. And so I
Mm.
mean, I can see that even in my own life, like certain relationships or just dating situations, and it's like, why did I have to go through that, you know, like, but I
Mm.
can, if I really sit down and look at it, I can really see that, okay, I learned this, I learned my worth with that one, I realized what I didn't want with that one, you know, like each one taught me something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I
Yes.
didn't like how the course, you know, went, but maybe I wasn't going to get it any other way.
Yeah, their relationships as reflections of ourselves, they're so helpful in that, like, obviously, when it's all inside of you, you just can't see it. So it's so hard to get a sense of what's going on. But if you let something external be a reflection, like a mirror,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's just easier to see what's happening. It's just
Mm.
easier, like,
Yeah.
utility wise. It's like, it is just helpful. Harder to
Yeah.
see when it's all invisible and only through feeling, which has already been so restricted due to patriarchy and capitalism, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And even the things that people said about me, like I was listening to a YouTube video with Tyler Perry recently, and they were asking him like, how do you deal with the critics? Because you know, I mean, any celebrity gets a lot of critics or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something that I really liked, and he said, "Well, first, ask yourself, is it true? Like whatever they said about you, is there any truth to what they said? And if there is some truth to it, then it's like, okay, you can kind of like work with it and see, all right, well, it might be true, but I knew that already, or, you know, whatever. But if it's something that is true and it's something that maybe is not aligned with, you know, who you want to be or what have you, then that's an opportunity for you to grow, you know, to see something, to hear something about yourself that maybe you didn't know. And that gives you that chance to like do something about it, you know.
That sounds like a very secure relationship with oneself.
Well, it sounds to me like he's done a lot of inner work. Like I really didn't know that much about him until I listened to that video. But
Yeah.
he
If he actually
definitely,
follows through and does that, yeah, that sounds amazing.
yeah, yeah. I really took that in because it's not always pleasant to hear criticism, or especially like if it's
Hmm.
someone you're dating and they're like, this, that, and they're saying they don't like this or that about you, and it's like, but is it true? Like, I don't think I ever really stopped to be like, well, is it true? Like a lot of time we just go on the defense, and then it's like, we might have reasons why you were this way or whatever. But to just take that pause and to take it in and to really see is okay, is what they're saying even true? And then I guess another step would be, well, from their perspective, is it true? Because
Mm.
everybody, the way they see the world is colored by their perspective on life. So maybe you might not think it's true, but from their perspective, there
Mhm.
might be some kind of truth to it or whatever.
Mhm.
So, but it really just speaks to like letting people be our mirrors. Cause like you said, it's hard to see what we are actually doing and how we actually are showing up in the world. Like we think we're showing up in the world a certain way, but how are other people receiving us? Like when
Mhm.
we walk into a room, what are we giving off? Like we don't know. We might think, oh, I'm open. I'm more. You might think you're doing a lot of stuff, but it's being received a different way. So I think that other people really are gifts to let us know what we're doing and how we're showing up.
Yeah. And that really, it's like, there needs to be a lot of inner trust. And if like there had been, any abuse in a person's life, like a lot of like healing from that. Because yeah, a person who is insecure, who already, yeah, just doesn't live their life on a foundation of deep love for themselves and deep esteem of themselves, yeah, any criticism is just going to feel like an attack because this poor person's already like, they're on a they're operating on deficiency, like a literal deficiency of love, like literal malnourishment. So it's like they just don't even, or like we don't even have the capacity to take things constructively because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like coming into an existing bed of like love and acceptance. It's like, like this doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It literally is just like a thing, and it's up to you if it's like, yeah, aligned with you or within your values and within your priorities to actually like work with it, change and shift. Yeah. There's
Yeah. Or at least even
like
have a
the
conversation about it, to
yeah.
be like, oh, wow, like, is that your experience with me? And maybe ask some questions to get, more clarification, but at least be open to having some kind of like conversation to understand like where the person is coming from.
Yeah, that takes a foundation of self-love already for sure.
I know it does. It does. Because I'm telling you, I used to be the one that any criticism, it was not received well. Like I would get
Hmm.
defensive and maybe just like shut down. So, I mean, I definitely have done a lot of work to be able to get to a place where it's like, okay, like I can hear what the person is saying and not automatically feel like I'm just being attacked, you know.
Hmm.
Um
Same.
so yeah, I mean it's definitely been a journey, but it's definitely worth it because how else would we know certain things if other people don't
Hmm.
share it? But I also think that, and not everybody, has done this part, but just like how you give criticism, like if you can share it in a way that isn't like if your tone and the words you use and your energy is not attacking, the person is more likely to be able to hear what you're saying. So that's
Oh my
another thing
God.
too, as the giver of the criticism, to, you know, take that into consideration as well.
Can I tell you something that I have been experiencing when like in regards to like giving criticism?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some context that I think is relevant. Um, this astrologer who I find to be incredibly accurate and incredibly helpful, she has a hypothesis that the placement, like which house your Neptune is in, is also the area of your life where people project the most on you. And for me, my Neptune is in the seventh house. So that's the house of like relationships, partnerships, like business collaboration kind of thing. And like, so I've been, on my little healing journey, like learning how to handle conflict more gracefully instead of shutting down and running away, or also instead of getting like hostile or like accusatory, like I'm a victim. And so the ways then that it's been coming up in my last few partnerships, in terms of like people that I've tried having some kind of like professional relationship with. Like we were like trying to get some kind of like working project together. Um, there would be some uh kind of like a conflict, more like just some kind of uncomfortable topic that needed to be addressed. And every time like I came at it like with this energy, for me, this is going on in my vessel, okay? It's like, okay, like I believe in our greatness. I believe in this person's greatness. I believe in my greatness. I believe that this is not a big fucking deal and that we can just like laugh about it and kind of just like call each other out playfully, teasingly, like, oh, ha ha, like, look at us being just as susceptible to mistakes as like anybody else, la la la. And so that would be my energy that I would like give my communication with. And they would shut down so hard and like really contract into like some kind of defensive position as if, yeah, like I had just like come like really forcefully and demanding like something like in a way as if they couldn't say no and they had to like do something. I don't know. It was like nuts. So like I have really been trying to like I've both been trying to like receive that as a reflection of like, oh god damn it, when was someone calling me into my greatness and I was still so gummed up in my victim mentality that I got triggered by it instead of letting them call me into greatness and getting on their level. And then also, yeah, just wanting to just like realizing, wow, I really am so fucking done with this victim story. I'm so done with these victim dynamics. Like, I do want to run with the big dogs. I want to run with people who are secure enough in themselves that this stuff can just be something we laugh about and like work through instead of getting so fucking triggered that everything blows up and shuts down. It's like, yeah, I'm ready to have fun with people who are just ready to laugh about when things get uncomfortable and hairy and we just got to work it out. Okay.
Mm, yeah. Well, just the fact that you are ready for that and you want that, you will have that. Because that's
Thank
something that
you.
I've really been noticing that. That once you level up to a certain, stage, you start attracting different people. Well, first of all, because you start holding a different frequency. I don't know if you heard this little phrase. I think it's be, do, have. So it's like once you be a certain way, then you're going to do certain things, and then you're going to have what you want. And I've been seeing
Mm.
that play out where it's like I have upgraded on a certain level. So on a certain energy level, I'm vibrating differently. And so now my actions are slightly different. Like I'm doing different things that I wasn't doing before, or maybe doing different things in a different way, or maybe just how I'm moving is different. And then now that
Hmm.
I'm doing these different things, I'm getting different outcomes. Like, for example, yesterday, I went grocery shopping, parked the car, got the groceries, put the groceries in the trunk, got in the car wouldn't start.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, when it was all said and done, I had to call roadside assistance, wait for them. They came. I was watching it was almost like my higher self. I was aware of like my higher self watching the whole thing play out. And I was really amazed at how calm I was. And I didn't even get into any
Mm.
stories like, I don't believe this is
Mm.
happening. Why? Like, if this would have happened even 2 months ago, that would have been the story. Like, why is this happening? I just got a new battery over the summer. Would we,
You're a
like,
victim
none of
of the
that?
universe.
Yes, none of that came. It was like, once the car didn't start, I just went into action, called the roadside assistance. They got back to me right away. And I was even annoyed that I couldn't get at first. You can't even get a live person. You got to do everything through an app. I didn't even start with, why can't I just, okay, there's an app, go through that. Like, I was just like, boom, boom, boom. There was no
Yeah.
story. The man came, he did what he gave me the jump. He told me, the battery wasn't installed properly, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all
Mm.
right. Like, I couldn't believe how cool, calm, and collected. There was no complaining. It was just like, what needs to be
Mhm.
done? And I just did it. And when I got home, I was just in shock. I'm like, who was that? Like, I just couldn't believe it. But I mean, I guess this is the work. This is the work I've been doing. This
Mhm.
is the work that I've been doing. So it's like you experience, your whole vibe is different. And so
Mhm.
everybody that's around you is experiencing this, and you're just going to call in different people, you know. So so yeah, so it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yes. It's like in that story of just how, like, instead of turning every obstacle into like a personally like pointed attack at you to try to drag you down, and it's like, this is just a thing. It's just happening. This is
Right.
just a thing that it's just
Right.
how it's set up. I'm just gonna do it. It's like you actually, like, you embody a trust in the universe still. Like, just because this thing popped up, it doesn't mean that the universe doesn't got me. It doesn't mean I don't got me. I am capable. I'm connected. I'm provided for. I'm protected. All this shit, Like, you embody that. That's why you were chill. Like, your nervous system got the message too. Like, oh, we get to trust in the universe? Okay, cool. So then I don't need to go into fucking survival mode and make a story just because this battery won't start.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So yeah, at some point, yeah, my nervous system definitely got upgraded. Definitely. Yeah. So that's beautiful to see. Like, when you could see, like, in real time, in these little everyday, ups and downs, you could see how, 2 months ago, I would have been like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really shocked. And I really, it was so interesting because I could see the witness watching everything,
Mm.
like watching me. Like, even to know that, wow, I'm so calm. Like, the whole time I felt like there was two of me. There was the witness, and then there was the me that was going through, handling the problem. And
Mm.
yeah, it was really beautiful just to see, like, presence in action.
Mm.
Because one thing to be able to cultivate presence in our meditations and in our spiritual practices, but when you can take that presence and just have
Mhm.
it throughout your day as you're going through the typical stuff that a day can bring, I think that's really what we're doing here.
Absolutely. That is what it took me. Like, I started to have that kind of realization that, like, oh fuck, the point of meditation isn't to like check, did it, and like be in a
Mm.
completely different consciousness after meditation's over. It's like, oh, I'm trying to
Right.
bring it with me. Bring the meditation off, out. Bring, like, keep it. Keep that
Right.
energy.
Yeah.
Yo,
Yeah.
Leah, ever since, I know I already like let you know, but ever since you like pointed out the whole my highest self is not in the story. My ego is the one telling the story. My highest self, there's no story happening. One of the like other little like moments where I realized, like, oh shit. This is my nervous system low-key being in survival mode. This is my ego telling a story. Um, like I just like okay. So this guy, I don't really know what's gonna happen. I just know that it's just continuing to unfold with like reflection after reflection, showing me ways that I can surrender more deeply into just fucking loving myself and trusting my heart and being in my body and being in no story. Um, yeah, like I just realized like one of the ways that my old patterns are still trying to keep my ego in the driver's seat instead of letting my heart take the wheel. When I realize when I'm running the story about like, oh, what am I gonna do if he ever shows up again? And just, trying to come up with like, how am I gonna handle it in a way that like I'm protecting myself and that blah blah blah. And yeah, I just realized like, oh, that is like that's just like a busted code. Because it's like as we've already been experiencing, like the ego is not the head of security. Like the ego is so bad at that job. The ego, it just has such ineffective tools for what it's trying to do. And it actually keeps us like, yeah, stressed and disconnected and distrusting and like focused on these external conditions. Like, oh, like the when then, like when this happens, then this happens. Like it's just all like so ineffective and so not helpful. And so I just like realized another, yeah, like I just realized that was another layer where I got to like take my ego, put it back in the co-pilot seat, like get centered in my heart. Because I swear to God, Leah, still every single time that I actually catch that it's happening and then I get back to my heart, well, like what is my heart saying? And my heart is just like, peace. There is like
Mm.
fucking nothing to worry about right now. Like peace, 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 peace. Just
Mm.
be here, be present. And so then it's
Right.
like, yeah, so I still don't know what's gonna happen. I just know that there's absolutely nothing for me to be fucking stressing about right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
Mm.
I love that. And I love that you said that phrase. Like you told you, I don't even know if you text me or if I read it on your stories, but you said something about me saying that, like the higher self, there is no self-talk. You saying that,
Hmm.
it reminded me that I said that. I guess I was
You
just
already said
transmitting. And I
that.
was like, oh my gosh, that's so, like, you reminded me of that. And then I was
Hmm.
like paying attention to that. And then I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, like, we're so busy trying to manage our life, our experiences, and other people. And that's why the ego is always running, because
Mm.
at some point, when we got disconnected from our intuition and our heart, and we gave our ego this job to take care of all this stuff. Like there's too many moving parts, there's too many unknowns, it's scary. I need you 24/7 to take care of all this. But now that we know that doesn't work, and the alternative is to just be here now. And it's like every time I've done that, the way that my heart and my body is able to meet the moment and just do and say what needs to be done or said, it's always perfect. And I hate that word perfect. Maybe that's not the right word to use, but it's always aligned. Like I never regret. It's never like I can regret things that my ego has done,
Hmm.
or said. But as far as my body and my heart, they have a knowing that our mind can't comprehend. So
Hmm.
when they're the ones that's leading, I never regret what has happened.
Hmm.
So it's like, I guess just more and more, just knowing that they got it. They got it.
Hmm.
And we
They
don't have
do.
to know what's going to happen. If we knew, life would be very uninteresting if we knew everything that was going to happen. Like there's something about, mystery and anticipation
Hmm.
and, being surprised. Like how I was surprised how I handled that thing. Like I couldn't stop smiling. I wrote it down in my journal because I have a section where I write down things that I did well. I have to remind myself or just like have documentation of things that I have done well. And it could be little things. And I wrote that.
Mm,
Like I just took care of business, what needed to be done. And there was no drama story in the background, you know?
mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like I really think we can just trust. And I mean, it's a practice. It's a practice, but I think maybe like if we write down the instances where we just blindly trusted our bodies and our hearts and look how it turned out, maybe after we write these things down enough times, our ego will get the memo like, oh, I guess I really can just chill and relax in the passenger seat, you know? And
I hope
just,
so. Shit. I hope it
yeah,
doesn't have to be a battle the whole life. Like, get out of there.
I
Let me move
know.
you. So,
Yeah, like this battle between the mind and the heart for control. But it's just, but I
oh.
feel like the heart isn't even battling. Like the heart is just there, just like
Mm.
doing its thing. And yeah, like I really love that I'm more open to just letting my heart and my body lead. I really love being in that place, you know.
I want to be in that place also, 100%. I want to start adding that practice to my practice too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I feel like it's a win-win because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
our heart knows what is going to fulfill us.
Yeah.
So it's like, why not let it lead? Like that's just going to make everything more efficient. Like it already knows. It
Yes.
knows. So why are we trying to figure stuff out? Oh, I got to make a list. No, just how does it feel? Like what are you drawn to? Like there's nothing to do but just follow the
Mm-hmm.
nudges, the promptings, the urges, you know. That's all we have to do, which is
That is
basically nothing.
all. Ah, right?
It's just
We can
tuning in, just
be.
paying attention basically.
Hmm. Oh, that's like, that reminds me of what I said in my live last night of like starting to restore the divinity to your masculine energy. Begin with paying attention. What do you pay attention to?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is a really beautiful note to close our conversation on. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling the same. There was a lot.
Hmm.